Hello everyone, welcome to part 2 of our Magic Online Draft Archetypes. Yesterday Ian Duke was sitting to my left. Today it's Randy Bueller. Welcome along. I'm not sure what it says that Ian got to do the friendly colours and you get to be the enemy pairs, but that's what we're going to do. And you should just explain, we said yesterday, what is an ally pair? What is an enemy pair?
Yeah, I mean, way back when Richard Garfield was first designing the game, he liked the idea that some of the colors were friends with each other. If you look at the color wheel on the back of a card, the ones that are next to each other are the friends, the ones that are way on the other side are enemies. So you used to see that play out with cards like Choke or Perish, and like the color hosers from way back in the 90s tended to be an enemy color hosing an enemy color. So, I mean, R&D's moved away from that. There aren't really color hosers that proves not to lead to great gameplay and kind of got left behind in the 90s, but the phrase friendly color, enemy color has definitely stuck around. Okay,
so we're going to start with white and then go 2 round the color wheel to get to black, and that is our first enemy color pair. And so let's take a look. Well, this is about tokens. That's the theme.
Yeah, I mean, you get various token effects. Delirium cards tend to show up in both of these colors, so it's not one of the most synergistic archetypes that you can get. And in fact, what a lot of the pros have done with this archetype is it's actually got this almost enchantment-flavored theme. The Ironclad Slayer can bring back an enchantment or an artifact, so you can get Boon of Emrakul, you can get, choking restraints. It's not a super strong synergy archetype, but there's definitely some interesting mechanics going on between these two colors.
I'm very glad that cards can't read, because if I was called sacrificial fodder, I might be quite upset. All right, let's take a look at the top commons that go into this white-black pairing. Now, this is the first time we're doing it today, so just read that bottom line. The most frequently first through fifth picked commons among draft winners on Magic Online. So it's not about pick one, it's in that front third of the booster pack. What are you picking most often? Randy, what stands out to you?
Yeah, you see Choking Restraints, you see Boon of Emrakul. I think that the fact that those are both enchantments does lead you down a potential direction if your draft goes the right way. And then, Sigardian Priest, not a surprise to anybody. Midnight Scavengers may be a little bit of a surprise. People don't really talk about that as being one of the best black commons, but I think it's not the best black common, but it's on the list somewhere.
I think part of that is that 2/3s seem to have risen in popularity quite a lot. Yep. And at that point, even though it's expensive, a 3/3, well, my math says that beats a 2/3.
Good point.
I mean, it's pretty simple, but it does actually work that way.
I also think Meld is relevant. Yeah, like being able to get the Graft Rats, which tend to float later in the draft. If you set yourself up by taking the Scavengers early, then you can scoop up the Graft Rats and have some real fun.
Right. Okay, so those are the commons. Let's take a look at the uncommons then. What are we looking at for those? Again, from Eldritch Moon. So you've got your Murder and you've got your Faith Unbroken, but plenty of creatures on that list.
Yeah, and Faith Unbroken first is interesting to me because it is such a swingy card. When you play that card, you're essentially saying, my creature's better and your creature is dead, unless you have a removal spell, in which case I've opened myself up for a 2-for-1. So one of us is getting 2-for-1'd. And when you play that card, it can almost feel like, okay, do I win the game or do you have a removal spell and you win the game? It's not quite that, but I mean, it's almost that. And so to see it show up on this list is actually pretty interesting, that it seems like that gamble, opening yourself up to that, just is worth it.
We have 2 packs of Eldritch Moon, but that means we have 1 pack of Shadows over Innistrad, and of course the cards vary in value now that that's the 3rd pack and based on what you've done in Eldritch Moon. So what are you drafting at home with your commons and your uncommons in Shadows over Innistrad in white-black? Let's take a look and we'll show you what's coming. There we are, Dead Weight. Yeah, okay, no surprise, Murderous Compulsion.
Removal.
Yeah.
This is very much a removal-centric color combination. I mean, the tokens give you some of that late game grindiness where if I can just remove their key creatures and survive, I can take advantage of that. It's a lot of the same familiar cards from all Shadows draft, but definitely a nice new twist with Eldritch Moon.
Yeah, I still love Tooth Collector. It's just, I know it's not a special card, but it just, every time I get to cast it at the right time, it always feels so good. Just a really, really nice uncommon. So that's white-black. Our next pair round the wheel, we're going to go to blue, and that means we pair with the enemy color 2 round. So that's blue-red, and apparently, Randy, spells matter.
This archetype is so much fun. This has got to be I don't know if it's the best archetype, but it is definitely my favorite archetype to draft. Get to draft these decks that don't look like normal limited decks. You're used to having, 15 creatures and 7 or 8 spells. You flip it. You can have 15 spells in this with the right 7 or 8 creatures. Maybe 10 creatures is plenty, and then you get your 13 spells. just a way to play limited that isn't normal, but the R&D managed to set up this format where it actually does work. You actually can kind of get away with doing the fun thing.
And something else that's nice about it is that because it is not a normal deck, the cards that go into it are not cards that are naturally being taken by normal players drafting normal decks. They don't necessarily spot the cards. Well, it isn't even for them. It is designed to float around the table to the blue-red drafter, which is great.
It's a great point.
Great stuff. Let's have a look at the commons then. What are we looking at for the cards that you're drafting first through fifth? Well, you've got Galvanic Bombardment and Alchemist Greeting. No surprise there. Talk to me a little bit about Drag Under. What's your sense of that card and what that card does in this format?
Yeah, I mean, you see Drag Under and Ingenious, the debate for what's the best blue common in Eldritch Moon, and you see both of them showing up on this list. Drag Under is great because it counts as a spell, but you don't lose a card. Like, you get this normally ephemeral bounce effect. You know, I'm unsummoning your creature, but because I get to draw a card when I play it, I'm not down a card. I just get to do a spell. I get to set you back. I get to sort of set up my engine where I can start taking advantage of things like the Thermal Alchemist or even the Ingenious Scob with prowess or with other sorts of spell matters triggers. It's kind of exactly what this deck wants to be doing.
Cards like Galvanic Bombardment and Alchemist Greeting, they're always going to be good. They're good in every format ever, pretty much. But a card like Thermo Alchemist is interesting because that's one of the thermometers of the format.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you're getting run over with your 0/3 tiny little road bump that does nothing, well, okay, it's not a very good card. You understand the format's very aggressive, and that's fine. If you're sitting there and you make it and your opponent's on 13 and you're thinking, probably got this one locked away, well, then Thermo Alchemist is absurdly powerful. And it's really important when you're trying to get a handle on a new format, getting a sense of those cards that give you the clues to what the whole format is doing.
Yeah,
Galvanic Bombardment won't ever do that. It'll just kill something.
Right, and everybody wants Galvanic Bombardment, but the fact that Thermal Alchemist is second on that list is a big deal. You get a couple of those in play, now your spells all randomly deal 2 damage. That adds up pretty quick.
It does. Let's take a look at the uncommons then that you're drafting in your drafts on Magic Online. Love Weaver of Lightning and Mercurial Geist is just
the payoff cards.
Real favorite. I mean, that's a very, very powerful list of 5 cards, to be fair.
Absolutely, and to be fair, Flow and Savage Alliance are higher picks than Weaver of Lightning and Mercurial Geist. Like, you're going to need to first pick those to get them, but they show up 3rd and 4th on this list because they aren't left in the pack when you get the 4th and 5th pick. Weaver of Lightning and Mercurial Geist in particular will often float to the blue-red player. That's really the big payoff card for committing to this archetype. All
right, so what about Shadows over Innistrad? Because where do the spells matter? What do they give you in Shadows over Innistrad in your final pack, Randy?
Yeah. The best removal spell in the format, and Fiery Temper, our apologies to Deadweight, but it's up there. And then Pyre Hound. That is probably the best common you can get for this Spells Matters deck. Permanent Prowess, right? Prowess is nice in a Spell Matters deck. What if you just got +1/+1 counters, +1 until end of turn? That's what Pyre Hound gives you, and that is definitely the marquee common you want to see in your Shadows pack after you set yourself up this way during Eldritch Moon.
All right, so that is blue-red. We've done white-black, we've done blue-red. We haven't yet seen green, so let's do that in our next color pair with black-green. And the theme of this is delirium, unless I'm losing my mind. I'm pretty sure it's
maybe
delirium.
Even if you are.
Right, so delirium is the goal for black-green, and you're looking to maximize those cards with the delirium ability, and you just want to quickly and consistently get 4 different types of cards into your graveyard. And I guess it says they prioritizes a variety of different card types during deck building, especially artifacts and enchantments, Randy.
Yeah, I mean, you need to make sure that you can spill an artifact in. You need to make sure you can spill an enchantment in, you know, and then you want to make sure you have some payoff cards too. A Thraben Foulbloods and Ishkana is maybe the bomb rare that you're hoping to open inside this archetype. Definitely plays a little slower, you know, a little grinder. You need some time to set up. And that's the tricky part with Delirium decks is, you know, Thraben Foulbloods, it's a 3-drop, but you're not going to have Delirium right away. You really got to make sure that your deck can survive long enough to get to Delirium and then really take advantage of the engines that you've built.
All right, so let's move along to the top commons in the black-green archetype. There we are, Ulvenwild Captive, the +3/-3 of Boon of Emrakul. Midnight Scavengers is back on the list. Prey Upon and Certain Death. And Certain Death, Randy, again, another card where if you just take it in isolation, you think 6 mana, sorcery, yeah, a bit of life gain, not that exciting. But in this format, It's very slow, and it does kill it dead. And the it on this occasion turns out to be some pretty big things that want killing.
Yeah, you do have time to get there is a great point. This list is interesting in that none of those cards actually have the word delirium on them. None of those cards are particularly graveyard fillers either. I mean, this is one of the things that I think is nice about Eldritch Moon is that you have these synergies baked into the format, but it's not like you have to pick your lane and just build this linear, 20 cards that all have the same keyword on them kind of a deck. You get to just play good cards, a good curve, and make smart decisions during the booster draft, and that works.
Yeah, and that's something to remind people when they're actually doing the draft itself to not panic about, because if you think, okay, my first few packs are black and green, and then brackets, so I'm meant to be delirium, but I've heard you and Ian and BDM and Marshall all weekend say, it's okay, you don't have to go there, you can just ease back into the correct card in those colors and be open, and you'll get to 23 perfectly serviceable cards.
Sure. Trees and removal. That's been the black-green strategy for 20 years, right?
Trees and removal. That's awesome. All right, so let's take a look at the top uncommons then. What's coming your way from Eldritch Moon. And we kick off with, I'm not a fan of snakes in general. That's in real life. But got to say, Noose Constrictor is a big card for me. I love that card.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a 2-drop. You're not going to get run over. Move because they never know how many cards you're willing to discard. And then it does also get cards into the graveyard. If you really need to enable delirium, hit them for an extra point, discard the thing you wanted. That's nice. Trigger madness. The card just does a little bit of everything. I mean, it's not quite clear shot. Is probably the best uncommon in the set in my mind. Would be even higher on that list if you ever saw it fourth. Somberwald Stag is an interesting first pick too. Yeah, a lot of good uncommons in green. This is definitely the kind of color that that gives you a lot of rewards if you're the only one in there.
So that's the uncommons. Let's take our way across to Shadows over Innistrad then. Where are the commons and uncommons going here? And we've got Dead Weight again, Rabid Bite, Murderous Compulsion. Hinterland Logger's an interesting one because on the face of it, that's a pretty ordinary card.
Yeah, but it's a 2-drop. Fills the curve super well.
Yep.
A lot of removal and a lot of potential either big creatures or potentially big creatures.
And then Pack Guardian, that was a card that we saw in Luis Scott Vargas's draft third pick just before he got his Arlene Cord.
He was delighted to pick that up. You see here, top uncommon in green and shadow.
Yep, and Tooth Collector's there again. All right, so we've done 3. We've got 2 more pairs to go. Let's bring you Red White. So I'm going to all that straight away, Randy. This is the one that concerns me because red-white, traditionally, it's meant to be aggressive. You see on there, red-white aggression, efficient creatures, backed up by a variety of combat tricks. That sounds just what red-white usually does. One of the fastest color pairs, sure, absolutely fine. I don't think it's very good, and I think people lose a lot with it.
No, I think you're right. You're just right. Red-white, you can even go red-white mid-range. Like Luis 3-0'd yesterday with a red-white deck. He wasn't happy to wind up in red-white for the reasons you point out. It naturally wants to be aggressive, but the format is set up where there are good enough blockers, there are enough 2/3s floating around, there are enough sort of ways to keep the game going long that the red-white deck has trouble finishing somebody off if it just goes with an all-in aggressive strategy. I mean, you can do it, it can be good, but it isn't as good as it has been in other formats.
Right, and even, here's my 2 that's going to block your 3/2. It'll die. I get a 3/2 afterwards. So now I've got another blocker. It's like I've life gained twice. I like red-white. I mean, there are a few things I like more than going, how many land? 15.
Yeah, I will say that here's the good news.
Okay.
If everybody really embraces this late game message that, you hear Marshall, me, Brian, everybody saying, oh, it's awesome, you have time to dirtle around and do all this cool stuff. That's when red-white can really show up and punish you. Right. If everybody just says, there's no aggro deck, I don't need to worry about these aggro decks, who needs 2-drops? Now you open the window up, red-white does show up and just smack them around.
And even in that third pack, Rush of Adrenaline comes along and goes, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Team or Battle Rage, sure.
Yeah, all right, so let's take a look at the commons that you're picking in your Magic Online drafts that are winning online. So Galvanic Bombardment, we'd expect that. Choking Restraints, we'd expect that. Alchemist Greeting, absolutely. Sigardian Priest, it says tap things down. The fun card on there is a card that initially didn't look all that, which is Brazen Wolves. It's a 2/3 for 3.
It's not a 2/3 for 3. What? It's a 4/3 for 3.
Right, but not everyone understands that when they first read it, because
The
they
people
think
who
of
are
that.
winning drafts with Magic Online understand
do.
it. That's why it's on that list. When
Yeah.
you see Brazen Wolves, you should ignore what it says in the lower right-hand corner. Just think of the card as a 4/3. 4/3 can't block. How about that?
See, that's just
Two
great.
in a red for a 4/3 that can't block. Done.
But do you
It's
see
even
how-
better than that.
Right, but-
Sometimes you can block with it. It's a 2/3, but that's fine.
I think a lot of people understand how good it was better if that's what it said.
True.
It's like, oh God, I have to attack with it. What if they've got a blocker? What if I'm on the draw? What if they're the aggressor? Then I'm in bags of trouble. That's like, no, it's yeah,
Card's great.
it's a super card. All right, let's go to the uncommons then. Eldritch Moon uncommons in the quite aggressive archetype. So you've got Incendiary Flow,
Sure.
of course you have. You've got Faith Unbroken, Savage Alliance. Ride Down's an interesting one because
Yes.
it's, for an aggressive deck, it's sort of in exactly the wrong place that you want. You don't want to be destroying a blocking creature. You want to kill it before they block. But then you get this sub-clause which mitigates it.
Right. It isn't like the normal white cards that destroy a blocker where, well, but they got the block. This one, your guy gets trample, so it's like they never blocked in the first place. The card is very good. I think it's really a payoff. If you want to go red-white aggro, nobody's going to steal your ride downs. You're going to, however many of them got opened are going to float to you, and the card is very powerful in this specific archetype.
Yeah, and yesterday, if you were watching, you're well aware that I think Smoldering Werewolf's a lovely card.
True.
Just for interest. I think it's just lovely little... I love the cards that have little sub-games within the game, and it's like, am I meant to play this on curve? Am I meant to play this to kill one thing? Am I meant to get greedy?
You're meant to play this post-combat after they set up a couple of blocks where they survived with 1 toughness on their real creatures.
And
that's when you want to play it.
And there's your answer. There we are. The Smoldering Werewolf. Great stuff. All right, let's look at Shadows over Innistrad, the commons and the uncommons. Together, what stands out to you here, Randy?
I mean, it's a lot of the usual suspects. It's aggressive creatures and it's removal spells. Voldarian Duelist is particularly aggressive. Your Lightning Axes and your Fiery Tempers, you want all of those that you can get your hands on. Kind of the usual suspects.
Yesterday, I had to use all my reserves of discretion, I think will do. David Ochoa showed me his deck after round 1, and it was 3 Spectral Reserves, 3 Near Heath Chaplain,
Nice.
3 Borrowed Grace, and it was this white weenie deck that had, I think he splashed 1 card for Campaign of Vengeance, and unsurprisingly, he did rather well with that deck. He was just chortling away.
Near Heath Chaplain is so good.
It really is.
Like 3/1 for 4 doesn't look good on the base of the stats, but it just is.
Yep, absolutely.
Every word on that card adds power. That's very relevant.
Hoovered up that table. All right, so that's red-white. Why don't we go to green-blue? And now it's our last color pair across the 2 days. It is also, Randy, the one color pair that has actively changed direction from where it was in Shadows over Innistrad. So let's talk a bit about Emerge.
Yeah, all the Emerge cards are good. Basically, every card in Eldritch Moon that has the word Emerge on it is powerful. And, if you watched our draft this morning, no one could get them. Like, they were not floating around the table at all. This is, if you polled this Pro Tour, if you asked everybody in the room what archetype they want to draft, I'm pretty sure this would come in first. It's the most powerful archetype. You can put it together. And that means, though, it's gotten kind of hard to actually get, because everybody wants those Emerge cards.
Yeah, I have been asked to make a correction. You see on screen there, Wretched Griff. I incorrectly stated yesterday that Eduardo Sajgalik had 4 Wretched Griff in a draft deck at Grand Prix Sydney last weekend, and he pointed out to me it was in fact 5. So apologies to Eduardo.
That's not going to happen anymore.
MBN.
I think the word might be out now.
I think so too, very well and truly. That's Emerge. Let's take a look at the top commons that you're drafting or trying to on Magic Online. Shocker, there is Wretched Griff.
Absolutely.
Alongside plenty of other good stuff.
And some of the enablers are interesting to see here too, right? Enlightened Maniac, Exultant Cultist. These cards are good because you can sack them to Emerge creatures for value. The blue-green, you get so much value. You get to do these powerful things. You get to play giant creatures, but you're not getting punished the way you normally do. If you sacrifice a creature, ritual out some giant fat creature, you're subject to 2-for-1s, but not if you build your deck right.
Yeah,
grab the Cultist, grab the Maniac. Those cards make this deck so much fun.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of the time those choices are actually pretty straightforward. Initially, when I first saw Emerge, I thought that there was going to be a lot of tension about whether you kept your mid-casting cost creature that you wanted to stick around, whether that was going to be too high a price, and whether you were actually going to err towards, I don't know, a Wretched Griff costing 5 or 6.
Sure.
But as it is, there's so many cards that do give you the payoff.
Right.
That it's just Wretched Griff does cost 4 a lot.
You get it both ways. It's pretty easy to get, enough cards in your deck that you're going to have something you actively want to sacrifice. And then at the same time, the emerge cards tend to have these powerful comes into play effects. Oh, I'm drawing an extra card. I'm putting a permanent on top of your library, where you're kind of already up a card anyway. So if I'm like, I'm up a card because I sacked my cultist, and I'm up a card because I put a thing on top of your deck, I'm just winning.
Yep. No argument. Let's look at the top uncommons then from Eldritch Moon in this new emerging archetype. You've got your Lashweed Lurker,
Yep.
Somberwild Stag, again Foul Emissary, which was first picked on camera, I think, by Luis, wasn't it? Was that his?
Twice.
Right, okay, there we
Both
go.
pack 1 and pack 2.
Drownyard Behemoth and Clear Shot once again.
Yeah, Clear Shot's great. You see the emerge creatures. The good ones tend to be uncommon. You get your hands on these to make the archetype work, and that has become the hard thing. These cards are good enough that they're getting played and constructed. The emerge decks have emerged this weekend as one of the real forces to be reckoned with and constructed, so that tells you something about where their power level's at for Limited.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so that's our last look at EMN, but one more thing to look at. What are you picking in that final pack, Shadows over Innistrad? Randy?
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, there's no emerge in Shadows, but you do see there's still a lot of very good cards. And cards like Ongoing Investigation, Ulvenwald Mysteries have gotten even better than they used to be because that format is a little bit slower. And interestingly, too, because there's things that take advantage of sacrificing, Bloodbriar, for example, clues actually have a decent amount of synergy with Eldritch Moon cards.
Right. Now that's...
You sacrifice your clue, so that
right. So and we've
just
seen that with
growing.
Neat, good stuff. All right, so there you have it. Those are the 5 enemy color pairs. Yesterday, if you want to go back on YouTube, we went through the 5 allied colors. So working around the color pie: white, blue, blue, black, black, red, red, green, green, white. So you can have a little look, these little nugget packages of all 10 archetypes. So whatever you're drafting on Magic Online, best of luck, have fun. Try and get those Wretched Griffs. It's not as easy as Sajgal it makes it look. That's the Magic Online Draft Archetypes.